what gripes do I have with this fountain pen? The first one, I don't know how to blame it on. Maybe I'll blame it on me. Maybe the marketing material fooled me and it worked. And I'm definitely a sucker because I fell for it. But everywhere where I read about this fountain pen, and I mean, even in its name, it mentions it's titanium or says it's titanium, right? I mean, the name of the pen, it's Conklin Duragraph Titanium and Black. So, based on how it is put and how it's advertised, my first feeling was that this pen is titanium. However, when I got it, since if you watched my channel for a while, you know that I enjoy anodizing my titanium fountain pens, as I've done with the previous pen that I reviewed recently, the Tanner fountain pen. So basically, I thought it's a titanium pen, and I was waiting for a few other pens before I wanted to touch this one. So before I did anything with it, it took about 4 or 6 weeks or something like that. And when I finally had the other two pens that I wanted to anodize, which incidentally was this one and another Moonman fountain pen that I don't have right now next to me, I decided to basically anodize them together. And before taking it apart completely, I only basically disassembled a section and I dunked it in the water. And I was waiting for it to start to change color. Obviously, I cleaned the parts. I did exactly the same thing as I do with all my titanium fountain pens and pieces that I anodize. The same process together, so exactly the same things. And it was set for gold. It turned purple, and it stayed purple. And I was confused. I cranked up the electricity, and it still stayed purple. So I didn't know what was going on. I removed it, and I grabbed the cloth to to wipe the water from the pen. And as I was wiping that, the purple came off. And I was really confused because, well, if you anodize a titanium fountain pen, it doesn't just come off after it's done. And then I started to test it with a magnet, something that I should have done before. And I have a magnet right here. And it turned out that this is not titanium. So imagine my disappointment and disbelief and how frustrated I was at that point in time. And for those of you that might not know, and that's perfectly fine, titanium is non-ferritic or whatever it's called. So basically, magnet doesn't stick to it anywhere. So then I went back and read again the descriptions and whatever it was, and I guess very cleverly was what it was saying, and I guess after the fact I understood finally what they were trying to say, is that most probably this fountain pen is PVD coated. However, it's PVD coated with titanium. It's not actually made of titanium. If this was obvious to everyone and but me, then I guess I will admit I am a moron and I apologize for all this rant. It's just that based on what I read and how it was presented, I thought it was something else. And that was the biggest disappointment on this fountain pen. Now, for the second biggest disappointment of of the fountain pen is the nib. And to explain the nib, I have to explain the JoWo nib units. So this is an Omniflex nib. This is the actual nib that came with this fountain pen that I'm showing today. And long story short, Java, or basically Jaffa Pen Company, decided to move from Bock nibs to JoWo nibs, which nothing wrong if business-wise doesn't work and they're not happy with whatever agreement they have. Who am I? Who do I care? Personally, JoWo and Bock nibs for me are equal in quality. I had bad nibs and I had great nibs coming from both of them. Anyway, The problem that I see is that JOWO nibs, they have a slight curve to them, and as such, their feed profile may be hard to see in the picture or from the camera angle. Their profile is slightly curved downwards, especially towards the pointy end of the nib. It's maybe hard to see it, but trust me, it's there ever so slightly, and this goes around the nib very nicely. It matches with the nib where it's supposed to sit, and there's absolutely no issue with it. However, the problem is that when they decided to get the JOWO nibs, they decided to also keep these generic feeds. Nothing wrong with them. They work fine as long as they pair with the right nib. Now, looking at a Bock nib, you'll see that it has a more straight profile than the Omniflex nib. Just ever so slightly bended towards the down position if you hold a pen normally. I'll try and take some pictures if this doesn't show very well, but basically the issue is that this feed, it's built for nibs with a straight profile. They don't really work with these nibs as well. And especially when you have tines that are a little bit softer and more bendable, in order to just open up the tines ever so slightly. The nib overpowers the feed, the feed overpowers the nib, and it opens the tines ever so slightly. And this is the reason why you might get a thicker line from these nibs than you should. I'm inserting a picture in here to show you how he actually looked when I received the fountain pen. And this is not the first Conkling or Monteverde fountain pen that I got it with Omniflex, and all of them, and I mean all of them for me from different sellers as well, had the same issue. So what I end up doing basically, I like these nibs, they're beautiful nibs. If you have this issue, my recommendation will be don't ruin the nib trying to conform the nib around the feed. Save the nib and put it on a nib unit that actually has a proper feed that was built for these nibs, and use something else instead on that pen. The other way to do it, it's you can also heat set the feed to work with this nib. However, you'll have to use a heat gun because this is ABS plastic, and in order to make it a little bit pliable, you have to go around 120, 130 degrees Celsius to be able to bend it. And what you do basically, obviously be careful, don't burn yourself. You hold a finger here and you slightly push on this once the feed is nice and pliable, and you only push enough until the tines they meet. You hold it there until it cools down, and then you release it, and then that's how you set the feed for these ones. And that was my second frustration with these fountain pens. And second frustration with these fountain pens happened in all the Conkling and Monteverde pens that I ordered with the Omniflex nib. Now I realized of the issue at the beginning when I first ordered the first one and I had the Omniflex nib. However, the other ones that I ordered them with the Omniflex nib because I like the Omniflex nib, and I wanted to get the Omniflex nib, and I wanted to try that specific fountain pen as well. And every time I got it, I just straight up replaced all the nibs in pretty much all the Monteverde and the Conkling fountain pens that I have, and I saved the Omniflex nibs and put them on actual JOWO nib units.